I live in Kensington, and I moved to Montgomery County when I was 2. First, I wanted to thank you guys. I came here thinking I was like Mr. Smith going to Rockville, and I didn't realize what a complicated issue this was. And rock and a hard place, this is a super hard thing.
You got it.
My youngest brother died of glioblastoma multiforme in 2016, right above he's right-handed, right above the ear where he survived about 14 months, which is the average. It was a horrible, horrible way to die. He left a widow and 2 teenage children going to BCC. So it's a very real issue. I understand it's not like you get it as soon as you use a phone. It increases your likelihood, and I'm firmly convinced that might have played a part in his death. But you were asking, just listening to all this, I don't feel as though it's quite ready to roll out what you have there. Some of the issues that concern me are the public transparency and comment. I don't really know that I'm completely familiar with the way the zoning text amendment is structured right now, but it sounds that that's a concern. Also, DPS enforcement. Sounds like, that should be happening prior to, like you said, putting more regulations out there that they're supposedly going to enforce. It also seems to me as you have a lot of experts here, both on the industry side and in the citizenry side, that could allow you to determine what kind of coverage we actually do need, because business will always push for more and more and more. The more you sell, the more money you make. And I understand that. But also we have young people here that are saying it's their livelihoods. I own a cell phone, but I take a lot of precautions now that I understand what the effects are. Also, I compliment you for working with other communities that are facing this issue. Finally, I would suggest, whether we go with 5G or not, even with 4G, education and outreach efforts with our youth especially, but with everyone across the board, to understand what the health effects of this technology are and how they're going to begin to impact in a serious way affecting the health of people who live in the county. Really instructing people things that you can do, either Bluetooth or wired headsets, turning off the Wi-Fi in your house at night. We use a timer. There's a whole lot of things that you can do, and a lot of expertise in this room of people. I bet everyone here owns a cell phone, and thank you very much for everything you're doing.
Thank you for that testimony. Much appreciated. Victoria.
Yes, good evening to the board. And just listening to what I've heard tonight and some of the studies that I've done, I wonder, because it says basically that we have one of the highest limits for EMFs in the world, yet we're behind in technology. Something's not rhyming. But what I'd like to say, for the record, obviously, is that I am opposed to ZTA. There's substantial evidence that supports the fact that living organisms such as humans, plants, animals, insects have been and continue to be impacted by the harmful effects of EMFs. It is important that we understand this, since the frequency levels referred to in a 2012 report are substantially lower than the levels that would be bombarding our communities once this program is deployed. The 2012 Bio-Initiative report, which I've given a copy to each one of the council members, it's a summary, is titled A Rationale for Biologically Based Exposure Standards for Low-Intensity Electromagnetic Radiation. So those who sit around and say there's no real evidence, this right here is the golden nugget. It is a comprehensive report prepared by 29 authors from 10 countries, a working group consisting of scientists, researchers, and public health and public policy experts. The strength of this well-respected report is that it has been done independent of governments, existing bodies, and industry professional societies that have clung to old standards. Therefore, this report, quote, presents a solid scientific and public health policy assessment that is evidence-based, end quote. 1,800 new studies were documented between the initial report in 2007 and the subsequent 2012 edition. Within these studies, effects were reported of exposure levels 10 to hundreds or thousands of times lower than allowed under safety limits in most countries of the world. I would like to briefly address several of the evidenced issues listed under the summary of the science section. Concerns have been identified with regards to the allowable EMF levels discussed in the report. The summary, part of a more than 1,500-page document, provides this crucial beneficial information in a condensed format. The level of frequency emitted by 5G will be approximately 6 to 100 gigahertz or higher. Therefore, the evidence shown should be a grave reminder that we'll see increased incidences of these previously noted findings. So this is the evidence of some of the effects from which comes from the summary. Evidence to damage of sperm and reproduction for fetal and neonatal effects, on effects of autism, electrohypersensitivity, which is often misdiagnosed as a mental disorder, effects from cell tower levels, RFR exposure, for effects on the blood-brain barrier, and many of the others you've heard tonight. So it's very important that we...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've been joined by Lisa Klein.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Klein. Thanks for hearing everybody out tonight. I'm sure I'm going to repeat. I'm not going to repeat what a lot of people have said about kids and health and cell towers. Kids are my thing. They're everybody's thing. But I am here. I'm a Gaithersburg resident, so we have our own zoning text. But I'm here as a representative of the MCC-PTA, which I work very closely with on safe technology issues. And I'll tell you what's not squaring up with me and adding up is that I look back at all the work that you folks have done. In 2014, you came out, Mr. Berliner especially, and said black rubber crumb on the playground and on our artificial turf fields is not okay. It's being studied by health experts. It's not something we really want to touch, and there are viable alternatives. And you created a resolution, and it was to address and alleviate community concerns. So that's kind of the theme I looked at when I looked back at some of the work that you've done. The e-cigarette situation, and that was, I think, Mrs. Florine, you had come out very strongly to say the county should not wait for the federal government to act on this. So you did, which was terrific, and we thank you for that. Very recently, Council Member Leventhal, you supported condoms in the high schools to prevent the spread of disease. Well, cancer is the disease. Many of us have been touched by it. I personally have been very touched by it. My daughter passed away of it. I don't want to touch this stuff. I don't want cell towers near schools. I've asked repeatedly for setbacks from schools, 1,500 feet. I have given you guys lists of other communities that have done it. I know you know it's the right thing to do. I know there are ways to do it. I know what you're thinking, and I'm sure Mr. Reamer, we've talked about this a lot, that you cannot deny applications based on health. Well, what you can do is deny them based on RF emissions not being up to standards. So baking something into the ZTA that says that the towers need to comply and they need to be tested monthly, or if there's a concerned community or neighbor that says that tower doesn't sound right, it's buzzing more than it used to, I want it checked out. There should be something in here that has the owner of the pole come out and check it out so that the family knows that it's within limits. You know, I have an RF meter. I've been around. The limits are pretty high for the bioinitiative standard, not for the FCC. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa, for your thoughtful testimony. And that concludes this group of speakers. And I believe our last group for the evening, Robert Janku, Vicky Huo, Ian Dingwall, Cliff Sosin, Wei Shen, Mark Preslin, and James Sledge. Thanks. All right. No one will criticize you if you say "me too" in one direction or the other, but we are here to hear you however you may choose to speak in your 3 minutes.